Okie dokie. So welcome everybody on day 2. So first of all, how are you feeling after having done day 1? Good?
Good.
Your
We're
brains
on
didn't
track.
explode on me? It's a lot of information, right? And sometimes it's question, everybody processes information differently and uh, will pull different things. So thinking about where you're at today, like basically 2 days later, is there something in particular that has resonated that you keep thinking about? Like that's your sort of your big aha so far as to um, what you took from Monday. I'm going to ask Alex first.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just being realistic about what it's going to take to get going in this business and how to be, planning ahead so that I'm setting myself up for success and not, going deal by deal by deal.
Well, and thinking in that business mindset that exactly what you said, you're setting yourself up to be successful versus flying by the seat of your pants, which is, with all due respect to our industry, how most people are functioning, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Samit, what about you? Oh, he's on the phone. Okay. Oh, that's okay. Hi, Samit.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What about you?
So after the last session, I figured out that we have to I have to run like a company, not just as an individual,
Yeah.
and I have to start right now. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I have incorporated myself. I'm going to register it with NSREC
Right.
because that's the number one thing that I want to do. And then, as you said, separate the finances accordingly.
Yes.
And create an account because right now it's a mess. Like I've been using my personal accounts, and if an inquiry comes, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mixing the money.
Yeah, so that's the priority for me.
Yeah.
And also for tax purpose, I had just a quick chat with my tax person, and he said, with the way that I'm going, it's going to save me a lot of money if I incorporate it.
Yeah.
So that is something that I am working on right now.
Perfect. So I'll just touch quickly on incorporation because the rest of your brains might go, oh, is that what I'm supposed to do right now? And it's really a production decision and how your family is set up as to whether it's the right decision. Typically, we would say if you're under 75,000 to 100,000 GCI for the year, it's not necessarily the benefit and the tax doesn't quite net out necessarily, but once you start to get into that higher production level, it is a significant difference in your net income. It is confusing. You have 2 tax returns, you pay yourself and you got taxes on this, and it can be a little bit hard to get your head around. But when your business is at that point, production wise, it's the logical thing to do. So, depending on your individual circumstances, we can have that conversation. And the simple math is in the corporation, you only pay 12% income tax. I believe it's 12. It's around 12 to 15. I think it's 12 on the profit of the business. And then you are taxed personally on what you take after tax, after I believe it's 30,000 in dividends you get out of the company free out of the profit that you don't pay income tax on, and you pay personal income tax on the difference between 30 and what you take out. And when you run a corporation, basically you don't take money out of that company that you don't need because you don't want to pay taxes on it, right? So right. That's why having that budget is going to be so important, Samit, because you're only going to pull out of the company literally the minimum that you personally require. Right. Your personal bank account is going to be sad. Fine, doesn't matter. You just need enough money in that to pay your bills, and the rest of the money you keep inside your corporation.
Right.
Because the profit you get, it's taxed, but it's a better tax place for your money.
Correct.
Okay. So it's again, it goes back to mindset because you think, well, I haven't paid myself that much. No, you own the corporation. If the corporation has money, you have money. Make sense?
And
so it's the same idea if you're not incorporated in pulling money out. So Kyle, you're not going to be incorporated yet because we're not ready for that. He's like, oh my God, don't panic me. So, but you're still, remember how we talked about that separate account? you're still only going to pull out of that separate bank account what you need based on your personal budget. You're going to leave the rest in there so that you don't spend it, because you'll spend it. Everybody will spend it. You put the money in your bank account, you're going to spend it. It's just human nature, right? Because that's your business's money, and you want to make sure you fund your business. Because if you fund your business, you fund your life. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
So your business has to be healthy in order to fund your personal life.
Correct.
Okay. So that's awesome, Simi. Thank you. Nicole.
Yeah, for me, the big takeaway again was to have the mindset as a business owner and not just as salespeople, real estate agents. And also, yeah, the mixing the money. So I contacted my bank to open a new account.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex. Yeah, I asked you. Kyle. I'm going in circles here. So you think I had 50 people on the call?
Stop mixing my money.
It's a big one, isn't it?
And I've tried to do it over several years, but it keeps going back into the same account somehow, magically.
So another way you can do it is have it at a different financial institution if you're not good at it.
Yeah, no, I have 2 different banks.
Oh, okay, then I can't help.
I just have no willpower. I'm just like, oh, money, let's move it over into this account now.
No, so if you're thinking like a business, then it's not your money to move. Imagine that you're sitting at your little mini board table, right? And you're a clone of you who's the CFO and the clone of you who's the director of operations.
Oh, I'm headed to jail.
You're going is you have to justify why you took that out of your business, right? So if you can't do it, you shouldn't have taken it. That's the mindset, because if you were a business, you wouldn't be able to just take it out of your account.
Yeah.
Well, you won't be in business long if you, and that's the mindset, right? It's your business's money, and you only need to take out of that business what you need basically to live, and the rest stays and funds your business. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Tara, what about you? We've got Tara back. Yay. Is she on mute?
My volume doesn't work very well. Yeah.
Oh, Lynette, that's who we're missing. Oh my God. Hang on a second. She's gone into the wrong Zoom. Bear with me. I'm like, why am I knew I was missing someone. God, that's terrible. Okay, sorry. So Tara, can you chat? Does your chat work? Her volume isn't working great. If you can chat what your aha was. Everything. You know what? I'm okay with that. So the idea will be today that we move forward, right? That we take this information and we start to process it. There's Lynette. I'm like, why am I missing somebody?
I just have a quick question, and
Sure.
before you move forward. So while I was, trying to understand not to mix money, and most of us, I think, had similar. So I looked at 2 different options, like opening a personal account or opening a business account altogether. So would that make any actual difference if you do it that way?
No, well, if you're incorporated, you will have a corporate account. You will take your corporate papers and you will go into the bank and you will open a corporate account. You would not have a personal account managing the funds of a corporation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
For everybody who's not incorporated, you would have like just a separate checking account. Like you just basically want it separate. You want 2 credit cards, you want a separate debit card. We recommend that if it's in the same financial institution and it's like a personal thing, like a separate personal account, they'll always try and tie it to your existing bank card. The challenge with that is like which one's checking, which one's savings. You have to get it in your brain so that you don't accidentally pull from the same account. And that's why some people do a separate institution so that they have like their TD card is their personal business account and their RBC one is their life. And then they don't ever accidentally go through and auto press checking or savings by mistake and start to mingle the money again. Because what happens is you start to do it and then you're like, oh, I'll pay myself back. I'll remember to do that. You put the receipt on your desk and it never happens. And then Kyle, who's mingling his money, goes off and he's like, oh, I did it once. It's fine. One more time. Like, and then all of a sudden you're right back to where you were, right? It's kind of like that I'm on a diet and one more snack won't kill me, right? Revenue Canada doesn't see it that way. One snack is one snack and not acceptable. So that's why, unless you get 2 debit cards, if you're not good at it, at separating until you create that habit, I would tell you to go to 2 different banks. It's just a personal checking account. It's not going to cost you anything, right? Like $10 a month or something. Like, it's not a big deal. But if you're not good at mingling, then pick another bank so that you physically have a different credit card, a different debit card, and then you're at the Walmart buying, groceries and stuff for an open house, and you put the divider thing down and you physically put 2 cards out. You will mentally start to make that change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to ask a related question to that is, we discussed about kind of keeping the business expenses separate. For example, if you are having a mortgage or a rent, a portion of that you can claim in the taxes.
Yes.
So for example, I pay mortgage. So do I take the mortgage out from the personal business account or my personal checking account?
You take it out of your personal checking account, and unless your company owns your house, which I don't think it does. Mm-hmm. So what would happen is you would track that, and then your accountant will do a portion of your business expenses for your home office. At the end, they'll do an adjustment.
Right.
At the end. So when you pay yourself, so let's say you're paying yourself $1,000 a week. I don't know, picking a number, right? So out of that $1,000 a week you pay yourself, you pay your mortgage, right? Cell phone, for example, you can pay entirely out of your business potentially and claim 20% as taxable income to you. When you get into this type of minutia, my answer is going to be, you need to talk to your accountant, because the last thing I want to do is send you down a very specific road with advice that was given to me personally as to how my corporation is set up. Everybody's structure is a little bit different. So, but for everybody else who's not incorporated, the concept is you pay your personal bills out of the money you've paid yourself from that separate account. Think of it, you've heard of the expression, I'm going to take a draw on my income. You've heard that expression before? Yeah. So when you're running a business and you've got this money sitting there from your business account, you're putting your commissions in there, and your budget says you need whatever, $3,000 a month. So you're going to take $750 every week and that's what you're going to pay yourself. And then you budget yourself on your personal life accordingly as to how those bills are going to be set up. Maybe you pay yourself once a month. It doesn't matter. But the idea is that you only take out of that business account the amounts that are in your personal spreadsheet. Because you don't need the rest. The rest is just sitting there making you feel happy that it's there. But you already own the other account, so we can be happy over there, and the money is there to fund the business. Make sense? Okay. So, Lynette, we were just doing ahas from whatever day we met. Tuesday? I don't know what day it is today.
It's Thursday. It was Tuesday.
Perfect.
Ahas from our first session.
Yeah.
Mine would have to be, I know about separating my accounts, and I have my commissions going in a separate account, but I wasn't making business payments from that account. Right. I was just getting my commission put in that account and then bringing it over to my personal. So
you basically did a useless step is what you're telling us.
It is. But I was like, okay, well, at least CRA would see all my commissions in one account, but they're not actually seeing all my business stuff in one account. So I have to change that.
Yeah. And it's the nice thing is that for most of you guys, because you're not at, 400 units a year or something, not that we don't want to get there, but it's pretty easy to implement right now. Mm-hmm. Right? And now is actually the perfect time because we're just really heading into the crazy of our season. We're having what we have lovingly called at the De Silva Goss Group, we are calling it a delayed spring.
Yeah, yeah.
Spring. So spring is going to happen in the summer is going to happen in the fall, and the winter is going to be busy too. Yay, we're just pushing the whole season
Yeah.
forward a quarter, right? Thank you to the COVID. So,
holy Lord, it's busy.
yeah. So you're not, you're not necessarily in a place where it's so complicated to implement this. The sooner you do it, there's no good time. It's like deciding to organize a closet. There's no good time, but once you start it, it's a lot easier to maintain it because you're only fixing the stuff you then screwed up. You're not starting from scratch all the time.
Yes. Yes.
Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so on that note, I am going to share my screen and we're going to take a quick look. So just as you know what we're going to accomplish today, and we will be done at 3 p.m. people. Whether we are actually done or not, if we have to reconvene for another hour next week, I'm happy to do that. But I physically need to put me arse in a car and drive somewhere, so we need to be done.
I'm sharing with you, these are all my receipts for 3 months. And then I do my GST and a big box, right?
Yeah.
I have an appointment at 3:15, so I will have to come off this and then listen to you in my vehicle as I'm driving.
Fine. Okay. It's gonna be the first time. So just to recap, I'm actually going to go backwards because they're going to want to recap what we talked about on Tuesday. We talked about mindset, the foundations of what you're doing and being in business, being a business person, a business owner versus a salesperson. We talked about SMART goals, and we're going to talk about those specifically in just a minute with respect to understanding how to measure something you're designing for yourself. And we'll cover that more in this section today. We talked about your big why. So before we move on to money, we're going to go back to your big why. We talked about the personal budget, and we talked about the business expenses. And all of this goes back to the foundations of you running a business. And then the other thing we talked about was best practices for financial success, which was things like separating your money, that you want to pay lots and lots of HST because that means you're profitable, right? We don't want to pay lots of income tax, but we want to pay lots of HST because then we have money to play with. And so just before we move on to the money and going through some of the worksheets that you did. So today, I need you guys to remember, normally I do this and we are an entire day. So we would not be 4 hours, we would be 6 hours. So I am condensing us a bit because none of us have the attention span for anything longer than 2 hours max on the computer. If we find we need to do a third session to really go deep into the things you want, I am happy to do that with you guys if you wish. I don't want to say, nope, it was designed as 2 and that's it and I'm not available to you. That I have no intention of doing that. If we find we need to do one more to wrap everything up and have you really be able to move forward and function, I am absolutely happy to schedule that with you, okay? Versus us feeling like super rushed and oh my God, we didn't get to it today, okay? So today we're gonna talk about your big why. We're gonna go back and look at some of the numbers that you've created both in your personal budgets and in your business budgets and your goals. We're gonna take a quick peek at those. Then we're going to then switch, and this is why that could take us more time than I think it's gonna take because we're doing this in less hours. The other pieces that I want to cover in this business planning session, whether it's today or we add a session, is talking about appointments and conversion rates and how to help you with that, because that's the key to profitability. Same idea as you want X% of anyone who walks into your store to leave with a shopping bag is the mindset of a business person. And that's what I want you to think of your appointments as. The shopping bag that they walk out with is your contract. Okay, you guys get that mindset?
Yeah.
So we want to figure out how to have everybody leave with a shopping bag. And when you think like that, it changes how you think of an appointment, doesn't it?
Mm.
Right? We want to close that sale on the appointment. So that's essentially the equivalent to them walking out with a consumer good out of your office, out of your store. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. We want to talk about reviewing your goals, and Lynette's favorite topic that we have talked about a gazillion times together, but it never gets old, is time blocking.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about that. And Kyle's like, oh my God, I'm going to fall into a coma. But you know, obviously that I'm going to approach this differently, Kyle, than you've ever seen before. You already know that, right?
I'm just so bad at time blocking. I time block everything and then I ignore it completely.
Right. But
I'll
see,
make up nice,
you're a
pretty
new man.
schedules.
You're a new man with a business account and no money mingling. So this is all part of that same thing, right?
True. That's tomorrow, Kyle, though.
That's okay. We're also going to talk about where are you going to find the business to create these appointments? Because it's all fine and good to set the goal, but where the hell are they coming from? And then we're going to talk about red light, green light, which goes back to budgeting. So that's a lot of material. I don't know if I'm capable of doing that in an hour and a half. I'm just going to be really honest with you. Okay. So, because, you know, I can talk. It may have been mentioned once or twice. So are you guys okay with that as a plan?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, the concept is in this whole program is that we're talking about how to build the business. Then we're talking about how to manage the business. Then we're talking about how to get the business. Because it doesn't do any good if I know what to do with it, but I don't have anything to manage, right? So that's why we have those pieces, and at the end, we try and kind of wrap it all up in a bow. Make sense? Okay, so let's start very quickly, in the essence of time. I want to talk quickly about your big whys, because it is relevant to, again, regrouping our mindset. So I'm going to start with Nicole.
Do you want me to say it or is it on the screen?
No, I'll get you to say it. I haven't shared screens yet.
Oh, let me just find my
She
email.
did send me her big Y. She's the only one who sent me a big Y. just noting. No, just noting.
So my big why is it basically is for James and myself to be able to continue to be able to support ourselves financially as self-employed business owners while enjoying a more flexible schedule and taking advantage of the East Coast lifestyle that we moved here for to take advantage of. And flexible schedule doesn't mean that we're going to work less, just means that we're not having to be a slave to an office schedule, which I was for almost 15 years, and I don't want to go back to that.
That's awesome. And what's really great about that is I really liked your disclaimer about flexible does not mean I work less. Because let's be clear, until you're at a very specific point in your business that you can start to delegate massive tasks or afford to hire the humans to do the things you don't want to do, you aren't necessarily working less in the building of your successful business. Let me be very clear about that. But it's, for example, I would like to take this morning off and go for a walk or go do this thing with my family, and I'm going to work the afternoon, and then maybe I'm going to work that evening after supper to offset what I did there, versus no, you have to report at 8:30 and you check out at 4:30 and don't book anything in the middle. That's the,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. Okay. Samit, what do you got for us?
The big why is that, you know, the flexibility in work. So because I moved to Canada a few years ago, I don't have a support system with what most of the Canadians would have, like a family, you know. So the biggest challenge for me was to take care of my son, you know, when I was working full time. My wife was working full time, and, you know, there's snow days, which was new to me when I moved. And, you know, it becomes a lot challenging, right? Like what to do. And then there is a point when you reach that now I need to do something better. And that's where I realized that, you know, I'm good at a lot of things, which I had done in the past. So I have been very happy doing this right now, and I want to continue and grow. And especially at my age, you know, I think, you know, taking care of my son is always a priority, making sure that he's always happy and I'm able to share more time with him. With this, at least I have a flexibility, you know, whether I can get him in the day or afternoon or at night, you know, which I didn't had before. So that's something, you know, me and my wife are very happy about, and probably I'll keep working and able to enjoy that time with them.
And that's really important, because it's interesting because neither one of you have given me an actual financial statement. Everybody thinks it's going to be money, and it's rarely money, right? Money allows you to do those other things, such as flexibility or travel or time with family or work from home or whatever, trips or whatever. But there's usually something more important, like family, like lifestyle, that's actually behind why in the world you're doing this. right?
Yeah,
Work hard so you can play hard, however you want to put it, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, like I think after a while, like the money in your bank account is just a number for you. If you're not able to actually enjoy your life with little moments of happiness, that number is not going to make any difference to you anyways, right?
Well, and I mean, I don't know. I know Lynette has children my daughter's age. Does anybody else here? I think Kyle clearly established that he has no small humans at this time.
I have an 18-year-old.
Do you? He's not
Yeah.
small then?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So you have an 18-year-old. What about you, Alex? No?
None, no kids.
Tara, are we allowed to ask how old Ashton is? Oh, I don't have a chat on. I think she's got to be in her late 20s, early 30s. I don't know. Oh, 24, 22, and 20 is what she's got.
Woo!
Nicole has fur babies, right? And Samit, your son is how old?
7 years.
7. Okay. And Lynette, yours are 24 and 27. Is that right?
24 and 26. Yep. And 2 fur babies and a parrot. Good
I
God.
thought I was pretty good there.
Yep.
So I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 25-year-old stepdaughter. And the one thing I will tell you, Samit, and everybody here, including Kyle, who has humans, will tell you, that time, it sounds so cliche, but holy crap. I don't know how I have a 24-year-old. It's not possible. It's like, how does that
I know.
So if you
I would do anything to make my kid 7 years old again.
I know. Wouldn't I too? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm very excited for you. And I do want to just add, because I know it sounds very whatever, but I think you probably have a better sense now since you've been with us with KW, is you may not specifically have a direct support system in the sense of some people that are related to you, but I can assure you that every single member of KW is there if you need something to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
It's very important. And that goes for all of you, right? I can tell you in my own life, I looked after my geriatric mother and she passed away and blah, blah, blah. And I can tell you that the support and the reach out at different times, even a couple of weeks ago, a month ago now, I guess, when there was a forest fire essentially behind my house in Porter's Lake, we could see it from the driveway. We were ready to be evacuated. I had all kinds of agents from KW messaging me who knew I lived in Porter's Lake, wanting to make sure I was okay. Right? So it is very cliche, but we have a pretty cool culture and a very great support system. So don't ever hesitate to reach out, any of you, if you need something outside of your business life. Please know that it's not just lip service at our office. Okay. So on that note, did I get Kyle? What about you? What's your big why?
My big why. So, one, I want to be able to take 3 months off a year. So I need to build a business that can sustain that. I also want to build my rental income portfolio to the point where I can retire in 20 years and be comfortable and pass that along to my son.
That's amazing. Again, what you're talking about is about lifestyle and balance and having the freedom that you accomplish by running a successful business, right? The business is the vehicle that lets you do that. Make sense? Lynette.
Yes. My big why?
Yeah.
So because it's my first year, as I'm sure with everyone in their first year, it's financial stability. It's being comfortable in life, because I know next year my goal will more than likely change. In the next year, it's going to change again. But right now, because it's my first year, I'm all about getting as many clients and as many buyers and listings as I possibly can, so that ultimately in 5 years, I have quite a bit referral-based clients. So that's my goal. I just want to be comfortable in life and potentially, I know it's far, not live paycheck to paycheck. That would be awesome.
So again, you're talking about stability. You're talking about what does that give you in the sense of reducing stress, allowing you to have time with family, allowing you not to be worried week to week, month to month. The money is the vehicle that will change how your life is structured,
Yes.
right? And the reason that I keep going back to this is because I remember starting and, you know, some like I had to buy a sign. Oh my God, how am I going to pay for that? Right? Like terrifying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And getting to the place where you aren't stressed about going to the grocery store and you
Yeah.
have that stability again, and you know that the phone's going to ring, you can breathe differently.
Yes.
Right? So
Which
it's
is
that.
why I'm just throwing this out there, which is why I have issues with my calendar and how things are blocked. No, don't give me that look, Ann. Why things are blocked in my calendar, because I feel like I gotta work like 17 hours a day almost before I can go to bed and rest and know I did everything I possibly could today. And you know what? I know it's the wrong thing to do, and I know I should get breaks, and I know I should walk away from my desk and do something personal, but I feel so driven to get to that point where I got to work my hardest my first year, and then maybe next year it'll ease off a little bit. I don't know. I
Just as a disclaimer, because I've known Lynette for almost 10 years.
yeah.
She is a workaholic to begin with. Pot calling kettle black.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear about that. I get asked that all the time. How do you do the things, all of the different things that you do? Anyway, so, you know, but I bet it's also about learning about yourself through the process of discovery and having a support system, even of peers, because Lynette's peers are constantly checking on her to make sure she's looked after personally outside of her business, because she will work herself literally into a coma. So being accountability partners in your business is not just accountability on production, but it's accountability on what are your goals and what is best for you as a human. So when we talk about that SMART goal, we talk about being accountable, talk about attainable, we talk about that. That's that part of it, that you don't also become self-destructive, either that you don't do something or you do too much of it. Because getting burnt out is not better than sitting on the couch watching Netflix. Neither one is a good extreme. Okay. I didn't ask you yet, Alex, I don't think.
Nope. So my big why is, I guess, kind of, it has a lot to do with the flexibility and the freedom, but it's also because it's aligned with kind of my overall entrepreneurial goals. So I've owned property, I have income properties, and this was just a very complementary piece to that business that I've already started. And, you know, I love the excitement and the enjoyment that I get from the transaction. So like, even though I'm new, I've put together one offer so far, and it was just like, man, I was pumped. You know, it was.
And it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like
right.
I'm 17 years, and I called a client this morning to tell her she had finally won a bidding war.
Awesome.
Like, oh my gosh. And she's crying. And I'm like, she's crying. She's so excited. And I'm like jumping up and down in my living room in my yoga pants, like, or leggings or whatever the hell I am on. Like, that doesn't go away. That's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing about this business I want you guys to remind yourselves of, because as a business, a lot of businesses are very repetitive. Like if you're in a store, you own a shop, you own a restaurant, it's very routine. There's not a whole lot of deviation to create new challenge. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Real estate, you might have done 500 residential deals, but the next one is just, what the hell was that? That was the weirdest thing. I've never seen that before. Like, it doesn't get boring.
Yeah.
Every deal is different. Every family is different. Every situation is different. So you will be continually challenged if you choose to be engaged in the process, which is why the people that run strong real estate businesses last for so long, because they continually are challenged. Because most of us who enter entrepreneurial work or sales, we're like squirrels or rabbits.
Yeah.
So if it's boring, we're done. I feel like, Kyle, you're definitely this person. If it's boring, you're done. Is that fair?
100%. I'm doing like 6 things at once right now as well. So I'm a definite squirrel.
Right. So I have decided that I have preferred to be a rabbit and or a bunny, because a bunny is much cuter and it does still go like me. It does still go everywhere. But a squirrel is basically a large rodent, and I don't know that that's what I want to be. So I'm going to be a bunny because I don't really want to be a rodent. I don't know if a rabbit's a rodent, but I don't think it is.
Rabbit's a rodent.
It's a nicer rodent.
Yeah, it's prettier. It's a prettier road.
Everybody loves a bunny. Who doesn't love a bunny? Okay, Tara, what confuses me, guys, is as you like turn your video on and off, I have you on gallery view and you all start switching around. So I'm like, oh, my top left box. Did I ask the top left box? No, they moved. Now they're on the bottom. Who did I ask? So I apologize for that. Tara, what about you? We're going to get a text from her because her volume is terrible. We're looking for your big why. Poor woman, we're watching her type. To have fun. I love that. I love that. Because you know what? I don't think enough of us think about fun in our business. And I love that and make money, of course, because you can have way more fun when you have more money. So, but you have more options. But you know, it is important that what I'm hearing from everybody is about serving other people, your families, you know, setting up a lifestyle, balance, enjoyment of life. And when you have that kind of a mindset, that will carry through to how you work with your clients. So you guys should be very, very proud of how you're coming to your business and how that mindset is, because it changes your energy, which I realize doesn't sound very scientific and doesn't sound very businessy, but if you've read enough business books, you'll know that it actually is a real thing in terms of how you function. So that's awesome. Okay, so now that we have this resonating in our brains, we're going to switch over to look at charts, which is like, you know, the complete opposite of a big philosophical conversation on big whys, but it will help us look at the big why better. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. And we are going to go into, who have I got here? Oh, I downloaded a bunch of them. Bear with me.
I did send mine.
Oh yeah, I just saw yours come in, so bear with me.
I sent mine by snail mail, so it'll be there shortly.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm, is that gonna do, oh, go away. I don't want to do it that way. Just a second. Okay, so I'm going to do it through my email. Bear with me a second. Okay, so Alex, I'm picking on you just because you're in front of me.
Yep, no problem.
So I'm going to open that with Google Sheets. So what I want you to know from today is if you didn't get a chance to finish this, that's fine. You may get slightly different take on it or different instructions after today that you didn't necessarily get. And then you can go back and make some adjustments, and I invite you to share them with me after. So, so here we have that we have your rent, we got your car payment, blah, 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 blah. So you have a grand total of $4,080. So what I love about looking at Alex's spreadsheet is that he has actually accounted for savings and growth and not just the bare minimum to sustain your bills, right? So that's fantastic. The idea would be that as your business grows every year, if you, for example, plan to do a 10% or 20% growth per year, that you would then proportionately increase things like savings and investments while maintaining the expense element to be as low as possible. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
That's how you develop wealth, okay? Is that this number, if your business grows, this number should grow with you. Okay. Right. So I'm also gonna, you know, since you guys know that I'm going to give you some suggestions. So some other things that I would suggest that you will probably look at, and if you, depending on how you did this. So I don't know if you're including toiletries and household supplies are all in your grocery bill.
Yeah, I would say I'm,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, this was a little bit tough for me because I'm trying to phase out of a career with a company and then manage, like I've got 3 rental properties that I, sometimes Airbnb. So my toiletries are kind of pushed into that category. So what I've tried to do here is simplify it as much as possible. And because I am currently living with my partner in a home that she owns, that's my rent payment. And I'd say my toiletries are included in the rent.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So the reason I just ask is sometimes it's like, we forget about categories, and maybe you buy them all in your grocery bill, like you don't go somewhere else for something. And so it all actually goes underneath, right? And so, it makes more sense to me now that I know there's another human contributing to the finances, because I was like, I don't know how you're eating for $400 a month, but I need to know what you're getting out of a box of pasta that I'm not. So, because I can't, we're like $400 a week, like it's ridiculous in our house, right? So medical insurance is great, sports and memberships, entertainment. This is really important. And you might add, for example, maybe you have, for example, that you have in your goals that you're going to take a vacation a year. And so you're budgeting, $200 a month to be saved to make sure that you have enough funds to, that you want to have $2,000 a year, whether you go south when we're allowed to do that again. Maybe you're doing a staycation at a nice resort in Cape Breton. I don't know, right? But that'll cost you as much as a week in south, right? So, just making sure that there's what we absolutely need, and then there's also building a little bit of making sure that we get some enjoyment out of that life. Because what will happen is if we don't include any of the other things, what your brain will say is that this is how much I need to make. And sometimes what happens is we stop the action. Right? If it turns out that you really need 4,500 in order to allow for, some personal time or vacation or Christmas budget, maybe you spend $2,000 a year on budget for Christmas, so you divide it out over 12 months, like this is sort of the idea. Then what happens is when these big events happen in life, you have the cash sitting, because just because we have it doesn't mean we spend it. And that we're actually looking at where we want our life to be. Okay. But it is essential at the beginning to even know what we need to do, because your goals will definitely not hit it. If your goal for 60,000 for GCI, but you need 60,000 here, we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have enough money. So you haven't done enough prospecting or haven't worked your business that way to reach that number. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So that's fantastic. Great start. Let me go back. So now we'll open these. We'll open the Google Sheets momentarily. Okay. So you're doing a planning year for 6 months, essentially, right? So are you aiming to earn 90,000 in 6 months?
That was my lofty goal. Yeah.
Okay. So this is where I challenge you as not as an individual human. I'm not trying to pick on you, but I just want to make sure. So for example, how many buyer or seller clients do you have in the pipeline right now?
I have 2 buyers and 1 prospective seller.
Okay. But do you have any of them under contract at this time?
No.
Okay. So to close 15 units between now and December, it is possible to do so. You are right. This is a very lofty goal, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's not that it's not possible, because I've absolutely seen it done. But when we look at the next part, when we get into the time blocking and how we're going to do that, it's looking at what is your prospecting activity in the sense of, can you create almost 2 consultations a week is what we need right here based on your conversion rates.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So it is absolutely possible, and we've seen it done, but I need you to be cognizant that your actions to reach that are going to have to be very targeted. So when we talk about your ideal week and what your one thing is, you are going to have to be super driven on that activity, and we can't rabbit or squirrel off, because we're going to be tracking it based on appointments.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at this, just to make sure you guys understand how you fill it out, because it looks to me like you have done it right. So I will say, because you're essentially a brand new agent, right?
Yep.
I am going to suggest that your listing and buyer ends are upside down. As a newer agent, it is much easier to get buyers than it is to get sellers. And it's simply because they don't have to pay you. It takes a certain level of contacts, or it takes a certain level of background experience to convince people to give you 5% of their equity when you have no track record. It's just harder. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I would say most new agents typically and statistically start off higher with buyers, and then those buyers morph themselves over time and relationship driven to become your seller base. So that's why agents often start as buyer's agents, and then it shifts to seller's agents as they go, because their base of clients becomes their sellers when they move up.
Right.
Right? And it's a lot easier to convince someone to hire you when they don't have to pay you, but they get representation and service and stuff. So because I want to make sure your goals are realistic, this is where I would challenge you to say, I would say, especially in a seller's market, listings are hard to get right now, generally, even for the most experienced of agents. I would put you at 60-40 the other way in your first year.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason that I'm having this conversation is because it's relevant in terms of how you prospect, right? So
Absolutely.
when we're talking about where you're going to get clients, it's a lot easier as a newer agent or someone who's resetting their business to go get buyers, right? So Lynette, I'm going to ask you to just jump in on that as a fellow new agent.
Absolutely. I have like 100% of my clients are buyers right now. I'm just now starting to get some listings, and this is like I'm 8 months in. So it's easier to get buyers for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, Kyle, you might be, or Alex, you might be the magical new realtor who just, their connections, they're just great. The more listings you get, great. You work less hours, etc. It's perfect, right? But I want to make sure we're setting you up for success, as you mentioned, and that we have your activities targeted to where you are more realistically going to find clients.
No, I appreciate you catching that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So go ahead. Someone wants to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add, if it would make sense. I'm in a similar situation like Alex. I'm new to the industry as well. And what I found is, because it's a seller's market, it's easy to kind of, to get more buyers, then kind of fight, for your listings where everybody else is working really hard on it as well. So if you rather invest your time with something which you can achieve with less efforts, I would rather do that as per the given situation, and then slowly work on getting more, sellers as well over the period of time. But with the current market, I would rather more focus on, like, that's what I am doing, and it's been really successful for me. So I'm just, I don't know if it's the right way to do, but that's.
But it's very normal. All those buyers will essentially become your listing pool in 3 years, right? They just will, if you keep in touch with them and look after them and manage them properly, you basically, when they're ready to sell and upgrade, they just call you. Like that you have this instant seller pool that sort of develops, right? The other piece of it as a newer agent or resetting is when you're in a seller's market, I would say as a new agent, it is more challenging to compete with the established agents who have essentially like a marketing machine. They have very established advertising plans. They have all the suppliers for photographers, videographers at their fingertips. When sellers don't even want to necessarily pay because they think they can just go on the market and sell themselves quickly, you're going to have a hard fight in a seller's market as a newer agent. I'm just trying to be very fair, right? I mean, and I can say even for Lynette, because she's working with us, she's selling the team and the experience of the team and the systems that we have, necessarily, which not that she wouldn't have her own great systems as a solo agent, but it certainly makes a difference in her competing at what we would consider a full commission. When
I will tell you, all of my clients have no idea that I've been in business for only 9 months, not one, because I advertise as the team having over 35 years experience, handle any situation. So they don't even ask how long I've been in the business because I've already told them that. And when I'm done with them, they actually go, oh my God, like, dude, you've provided so much help and so much assistance. You're so good at what you do. And I'm thinking, wow, I just won that one. So, but if it wasn't for everybody else like me being able to reach out to people to ask those difficult questions that I wouldn't have a damn clue how to answer, I would definitely be showing my newness.
Right. So, and that's the thing, if you're not on a team, you don't need to be on a team to be a super successful, great agent. That's not what we're saying. But that's where reaching out to each other and reaching out to your broker team and reaching out to management so that you get the help you need to be able to develop these tools and systems for yourself. But they take time. Like the stuff that I do now is not the stuff I did 17 years ago, right? Yeah. It's just harder. So I just want to make sure that you're positioned to accomplish your goals, and that where you start prospecting, we're not going to tell you not to prospect for listings. That's not what I'm telling you, but I'm telling you your conversion rate will be higher on buyers right now who are especially aware that they want independent representation in a seller's market. They want someone to fight for them. And so it is even easier to get a buyer under contract right now because they know they need help. They know they can't win in a fight. They may have tried once or twice on their own as a customer and it doesn't work. And so then they go from there. So when we're looking at that. So right now, if you do have listings that are properly priced, I always have to add that caveat, you should absolutely be at a 90% sale ratio, even as a new agent. The key is it has to be priced right. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about the other training and stuff, one of the conversations is, we've done training on listings and we'll be doing more, is please, 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 if I can give you any advice as a newer agent or a reestablishing agent, is do not buy a listing. And what that means is that you are basically saying or agreeing to the price that the seller is telling you. You will not sell it. The market is the market. There's nothing personal about what their house is worth. It's worth what it's worth. And if you take it on thinking you're magically going to get them to drop the price and you're going to be the one after whatever it's not going to work. And
my last 3 listing appointments, I literally had to fight other agents with their prices. And sure enough, they went with the higher agents that were newer. And like myself and 2 other agents that had been in the industry for 6 and 10 years went to the same listing appointments, gave the same price, but they went with the higher person, even knowing they're already on the market at a higher price, and switched because of that.
So that's a different training session, and I'll be doing something on that. So please remind me if I don't get it scheduled right away to do that. But there is a methodology to teach sellers, and there is objection handling that you can learn on how to win. We've won listings where we're like 30K under the competitor, but our price, they just know our price is right, and we show the other elements that price is not going to get our listings. Sorry?
Please schedule that one.
Yeah.
I need that one.
So I mean, I'll give you an example. We just took over a listing not long ago. They were listed at I'm going to say 330, and it didn't sell. And they were shopping for agents. They interviewed a couple people. We listed them at 275, and we sold the house. We did go to multiple offers. We ended up actually selling at like 280 or something, but we certainly weren't at 330 because I don't know who the hell it told them. And the person said, when we showed them the numbers, they went, it doesn't make any sense why I was at that number, right?
When I first got in the industry, I was taught, get the listing at whatever price and then beat them down on price.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that was the mindset. I've heard it. I've seen those. I've been at those classes.
You can figure out the brokerage I worked at.
Yeah, so the listing, what you have to remember though, okay, so let's go back. I'm glad you said that though, because looking at your goals, and this is related to Alex and all of you, you're a business person. Are you going to go put something on your menu or put something in your shop thinking you're going to attract them all in, and then you're suddenly, while they're there, going to negotiate them down or get them to buy? It doesn't work like that. That's not how the consumer works. And that's not how a business plans its business. Because the most valuable thing you have in this whole chart is your time. So your time and money that you're going to spend on a buyer or a seller who is not a qualified buyer or seller, meaning they are not motivated, they're not educated, they're not ready, is time and money you are going to throw down the toilet. And essentially, that is time that you did not spend with a qualified, motivated consumer. So you're going to throw all your conversion rates in the toilet because you're going to lose 5 listings, which is going to put your conversion rate down to 50% because they didn't sell.
Yeah.
And they're not going to sell if they're not priced right. Make sense? It's no different than taking a buyer out who's qualified for $250,000 and showing them a $300,000 house, thinking you're going to magically negotiate that down to $250,000. Oh, that's so funny. So, but it's the same thing, just on the opposite. You're telling the seller, well, I'll put the sticker price on. Meanwhile, you're secretly knowing you're only going to get X. Now you've got to mentally get that client down to the number you want. You told them, you agreed to it the first place. You're the professional. Why should they change their mind later? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll talk about that. So when we're looking at your listing sold, if it's priced properly, Alex, absolutely should be at 90%. When you are a brand new agent, I am going to work you backwards a little bit here, darling. I'm going to take you back down closer to 75% on appointments. 7 out of 10 is going to be about what you will probably hit for sitting at proverbial kitchen tables on listings in terms of closing. Your listing presentation is going to have to be rock freaking solid to get over 80 as a new agent.
Sorry, you're just not sharing your screen anymore, I think.
Oh, can you guys see my screen?
I can see it.
Yeah.
I see your screen.
I lost it somehow, sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, my bad.
That's okay. I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm still here. Okay, so I'm changing your listing taken on appointments down to 75%.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where you have to track. This is where you have to pay attention in your calendar to what you did and what the results were, or else we don't know what you've done, right? And it's perfectly okay that you go track, crack, 3 no, 3 no, 3 no, 1 yes, perfect. Because we can't, as remember we talked about last time, I can't help you figure out or get you the right coaching on what is actually happening in that appointment if I don't know what's happening.
Right.
So it might be that you're great at convincing people to let you sit down and show them the market, but maybe you don't know how to handle their objections. Maybe you don't know how to beat someone who's buying the listing, right? So, but until we track it, we can't identify that element of what you're doing. Make sense? So for example, maybe you're really good at signing buyers, but they're not buying. Like they're looking at properties, looking and looking, and they're not pulling the trigger. Make sense? You've all heard this. So if that was the scenario, then I would be able, if that was tracked, where you're like, I've got 10 clients under contract, but we've looked at 50 houses and I can't get them to pull the trigger. I already know just from that statement that you need work on how to work with your clients on their wants and their needs to filter. You need a different pre-qualification process for buyers so that when you actually go out and look at 5 listings, one of them is the one. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It also lets us know, like, if you have buyers, if you had 3 buyers, right, who all back out of deals, and now you're like completely disappointed and devastated because you're like, well, I wrote offers and they all just got cold feet and backed out. That's a coaching the client element. That's a preparing the client for the process and the realities of inspections and how it's going to work and what the expectations are. So this is why you tracking what you're doing will allow us to hone in on what is it we need to do to get those 10 people to actually close on properties. Because if you got 10 people to go out with you, then you're great at sharing your initial value proposition. What we need to work on might be the how to wrap it up into a paycheck part, the second part. Or maybe you have people, you're just not getting them to commit to meeting with you. So what do we have to do to create your value proposition or handle objections as to why they should meet with you?
Right.
Okay. But that's why these conversion rates, it seems like very arbitrary, but it's so powerful for all of you. And we're just using Alex's sheet here, but this applies to everybody, right? Because if you changed, so right now, see how when I dropped your conversion rate, you went up to 2.3 appointments, right? But look at how, for example, if you are getting 90% of your listings, if 90% of your buyers buy, and if you're getting 90% of your buyers on agreements, right? So that makes a difference. And if your trips go down, now we're under 2 appointments a week. So now I'm working not as hard, but I'm closing the same amount of deals. So my business is more efficient. Therefore, my business is more profitable because my paycheck per hour is higher. Do you guys get that mindset? I'm sure in the winter, you would rather do 5 appointments instead of 10 to get 5, right? You want to take 3 months off? Well, then we need to make sure that in those 9 months that we are going to kill it hands down every time we're out. I'll be perfectly honest, and Lynette knows this. It is 100% my assumption that when I go on a listing appointment, that I'm going to win. I have not a doubt in my mind. And about 9.8% of the time, we do win. But we worked really, really, really hard on honing that system. Is that what my conversion rate when I started was? Absolutely not. Like, absolutely not, right? My expectation is that if I answer a sign call, which is never actually a physical sign call, but an internet lead or whatever, realtor.ca or whatever comes from, my expectation is that if I meet with that client, that I will get them under contract. I don't care about them buying the house they called me on. I don't care about that. That is my expectation, is that if I have an appointment, that I will have a contract. That is my expectation. So that's my conversion rate. My expectation is in the 90s because I don't want to do extra appointments. So I want to do it right the first time. So that's where tracking and figuring it out, like, what did we do wrong? Analyzing your appointments, tweaking them, having a conversation with yourself or having somebody else shadow with you to be able to figure out what you're doing. If you're also doing appointments now by Zoom, record them because you can watch them later if it didn't go right, or show them to someone else and they can go, okay, they actually handed you an objection and you missed it. You may not know you missed it, right? So that's part of the process because these conversion rates are absolutely key to you hitting these goals in a short period of time. So that's why when we're looking at our business, we're looking at it from the efficiencies. What are my systems? What am I doing, right? Buyers, yes, they do take more time in the sense of per hour because you're on inspections and whatever. When you're the listing agent, you just have to sit back and wait for the buyer to do their inspections. But it is harder to sell your value in a seller's market as a new agent unless you have a very strong presentation. And maybe you do, and that's great. This is where practice and role play and all those things that everybody hates, let's be honest, everybody hates them. If you like them, I don't know who you are because I don't know any realtors that do. But practice comes in lots of ways. Practice comes by doing it with lots and lots of clients, but I'd rather that you screw it up with a peer than screw it up and lose a valuable client appointment. So from a business perspective, if you were a motivational speaker or you're a professional athlete or you do anything where you need to present and you've got that one kick at the cat, you've got that one listing appointment, you've got 1.5 hours in their kitchen, you don't get to screw it up. You don't want to practice on clients. That's not how a successful business opens. Think about restaurants. I remember when the Keg opened, whenever that was last year in Dartmouth, we went early on and we were really nervous because we thought, oh my God, like they're not going to know what they're doing. Like brand new restaurant, we're going to be like the guinea pigs with waiting 45 minutes for an appetizer, right? It was as if they had been open for a year. It was, I think we were there in week 2 or 3. It was so seamless. We actually spoke to the server and said, like, oh my God, like how did this happen? How is this fast? She said, we practiced for a month before the restaurant opened. They served, they did the menus, they did all of that for a month before it opened so that we would have a seamless client experience and come back. That's how your listing presentations and your buyer presentations need to happen. So when we have the mindset about practicing or role play or recording yourself or dry running on your family or other realtors, that's what I want you to think about. Does that make sense? But everybody hates it. I know you hate it. Don't tell me you like it. I know you don't, right? We feel awkward. It's embarrassing. It's weird, right? I totally get it. But I really rather you practice on each other than to practice where you could lose. That practice run in front of a client could cost you $10,000. That's a really expensive practice run. Fair? Okay. Smiling and nodding at me. Perfect. Okay. So where was I? Okay, your chart. So when we look at that and then we look at your business budget. So this is always very hard. And I know it's very hard for new agents. And I had a couple of you mention that going, I literally am throwing spaghetti on a wall here. I have literally no idea what the hell I'm doing. And that's perfectly okay. Okay. So some of them you're going to know just automatically. Like you can look at your cell phone bill. That one you probably know, right? Car is, look at your car payment. That one's pretty easy. You may or may not be paying attention to your gas, but guess what? If it was all in that one account, I could just check the one account and see, oh, my gas. Almost every online banking system has an ability to categorize vendors in online spending pattern things. I don't really think it matters what bank you're in. I think they all have it now because it's a competitive edge where you can categorize expenses and it actually learns what certain vendors are, right? Like I know with Royal Bank, it automatically used to think that Walmart was clothing, but I buy groceries sometimes at Walmart or I buy like household supplies. So it now recognizes it that way and categorizes in my chart that it auto produces under those. Okay. So some of these, it's just like, it's literally a complete crapshoot for the first year. And that's totally fine. The end result is that you should be checking it at the end of your month. You print out your bank statement and you can run a spreadsheet. You can, you don't need a fancy accounting program. You can run a very simple Google Sheets that just tracks by category what you're doing per month. Don't make this into a big thing, guys, okay? But then you'll be able to go back and actually create reality in your numbers, right? So I do a quarterly meeting with my bookkeeper to review my profit and loss and my expense tracking so that I'm looking at where I'm at. So I can review what my cost of sales are. I used to do it more often, but now my expenses are kind of all the same. So we just go back and make sure that I haven't gone sideways. So automobile and travel, meals and entertainment, you kept some of the ones we already had in here, which is fine. Your cap, your royalty, these are pretty reasonable numbers. It's just a question of what they actually are. But the idea is to be paying attention and thinking about the fact that you need to pay attention to the numbers, whereas most agents aren't, right? So when you're trying to build growth, it's again about keeping those expenses moderate, increasing your conversion rates, and increasing your profit. So that's how that spread goes, right? We've all seen, all the horrible stuff on the news. I think it was WestJet last night laid off literally a third of its workforce, right? It's terrible. But the reality is until certain things change, they have to cut their expenses because they have no revenue. They can't generate more revenue. So something has to give. or I don't know who forecloses on planes or what happens. I don't know what that process is exactly, but you know, there's consequences to debt they have to pay and service, but they right now, because their revenue is not going up, there's only one other thing to do, but they can't do that if they're not tracking. And I'm not saying it's a pleasant thing, but that's a business decision. And you as an agent may have made a commitment that you were going to advertise in some certain other thing, or you're going to sponsor some ball team, but maybe you don't actually have the revenue to do that. It's making an informed decision before you make a financial commitment. So here for CRM, and again, it should actually be 0. And I'm thrilled that you are. I can tell you, I think I mentioned last time, we made the full switch over into Command as a team. And I'm not going to say it was super easy because it was learning, but I am blown away on a daily basis with what this frickin' thing can do. And just as an FYI, in advance of a broker video you're going to get from me, it is going to be mandatory that you are fully into Command probably by the beginning of September, because of the compliance requirements of Keller Williams International. It's how documents get submitted. You will no longer be emailing documents into sales, etc. So you're going to end up in it one way or the other, because it's how we're going to be. It's how we do broker review. We're slowly transitioning members of the company over, but once you're in it, I got to tell you, it's amazing what it can do. So you will be in there at some point. Advertising, newspapers, farming, etc. Client appreciation and community events. So this could be this. Maybe this is your sponsorship budget, Alex, where you're like, okay, you know what, I want to be able to do, I want to donate X amount to Feed Nova Scotia. I want to host a wine tasting night for clients. And, you know, your budget may only be 500 because you're going to get sponsors. You're going to get your mortgage guy to sponsor, and you're going to get the local brewery to sponsor, and you're going to do whatever so that your hard cost is only 500, because that's how a business person plans an event that you're not actually spending the money, right? Those of you, think about your rental. A couple of you mentioned that you have rental properties. Essentially, you're getting somebody else to pay your mortgage to build your equity, right? That's what you're doing, right? So this is the same thing when we're dealing with certain things for clients. Why do you want to pay for it? Let's get someone else's money to pay for it. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So going through their social media and advertising, you know, that could be that, you know, you're doing through Command because that's the cheapest way to do it. Gift cards, closing. So what we would look at here is if I look at this, we've got 500 for your first year. If I go over here, I've got 15 sales that you have. So essentially, if we go back here, I'm going to do math, one moment. So what you are doing is you are doing a $33 per client closing gift. So maybe that's a nice bottle of wine, and maybe it's something else. I don't know, but that's what you're doing, is saying I'm doing $33 per client.
Right.
So you might decide that that's enough. You don't have to do client gifts. I'm just saying, but maybe you have a proportion that up to 250, I spend 50. They buy 250 to 500. Maybe I spend 150. You know, maybe you scale it and you multiply that out based on your deals.
Right.
Right. But what could easily happen is if you want to do the same thing and provide the same client experience for each human that works with you, you would want a minimum standard that you provide. And you can certainly buy a lovely bottle of wine and a nice card for $35, right? And deliver it, right? But it's that concept of taking your goal number and dividing that out. If we go back to your goal number, you have 6 listings, right? But you took 7 because we've assumed one of them doesn't sell. And the one may not sell because they changed their mind or their job didn't transfer or whatever, right? Like things happen, right? So if we go to our 7 listings, then we might say, okay, if your average price is, you know, 300,000 or whatever, if I do 300,000 times 2.5%, that's $7,500, right? Times 30% of your cap is 2,250 minus 7,500 is a net of 5,250 that you're going to take per deal. you see where I'm going with this, guys? Are you following me? So essentially, right now, you've got advertising of $500 for 7 listings and any other lead generation you want to do. So you're probably allotting here about $25 per listing to advertise to create leads or business. That may not be an appropriate amount to spend on a listing in that client's mind. What's your budget on marketing? Now, normally we don't tell them our budget, but if you are committing to doing X or Y, I'm going to post this, I'm going to boost it, I'm going to target, this demographic, I'm going to, do this or that, I'm going to, internationally do this or whatever you're going to do. You always want to take your budget and divide it by the number of units that you're coming up with. It will help you come up with more rational numbers and a more of an easier way to track your business. Do you remember when I talked about understanding what a listing costs you and your cost of sales?
Mm-hmm.
This is what this is about. So if you're going to have 7 listings in order to accomplish your goal, you might commit $50 or $100 per listing that you're going to do some form of marketing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the problem here for me is I just had no benchmarks. When I was doing this,
No, absolutely. And this is why I can really honestly use your chart for everybody, because it's about learning to understand how to populate it. This is not in any way a criticism of what you did, Alex. I don't mean it that way. Right? It's looking at it and going, so how in the world do I come up with this number? This is why this chart is tied to this one. So same thing, if I go back here and I go to signage, so if I do, if you've got 7 listings, it's an average of $50 to $60 per listing for a sign install. So that's $420. I don't have enough money budgeted for signs installation.
Yep.
Okay. If you're going to run on average between video tours or Matterport or professional photography or whatever else you're doing, you're not going to have everything for everyone, but you're going to create a standard as a listing agent. So I'll give you an example. We hire a professional photographer for every single listing, whether it's an $80,000 mini home or $1 million house. Everybody gets a professional. I'm not a photographer. And I want every single client to have an amazing listing because that's going to bring me more listings and more referrals. Make sense? Every client feels like $1 million. It doesn't matter what the value of the property is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have 8 lists, if you have 7 listings, you're going to run an average of a minimum of 300 in photography and video per listing. Some is going to be 5, some is going to be 2. That's why I'm giving you an average, right? So when we look at that, we go, okay, I don't quite have enough here, right? So these are conversations, right? So if you're doing separate videography there, you might be okay, but you can use this goal sheet over here to help give you your benchmarks for multiplying the volume by the units you're going to do. Then you might find one of your suppliers offers you a deal or they're too expensive, or maybe you find some other way to do something and you can tweak it, but you can only tweak it if we're measuring it. And that's why you hear so often agents being like, all I feel like I'm doing is spending money and I don't even know. But if we looked at this, so let's say we had an average of between sign installations and some advertising and a video and maybe some staging on a listing, maybe you spend $1,000 hard cash, maybe. That would be high, but let's say you did that. Your profit would be $4,200. That is a 400% rate of return. That's a pretty good investment on that cash. Now we have to factor your time in, but if you don't know, if you're spending all kinds of money on a listing and you're not paying attention and you suddenly agree to discount your commission, which I'm very much against, and we'll talk about that later, you're going to throw off your profit margin because you could put yourself in the position where you just can't afford to do it. in our case, we add in a factor because we have a full-time transaction coordinator that works for our team. So she is a factor in our cost of sales because she does 40 to 50 hours a week full-time work for our team. So she is a factor in our cost of sales because the volume has to pay for her. Does that make sense? Okay. So when you're looking at this, the end result is you get into, here we have a profit of $27,000, okay? So the challenge we have here is this 27,000 isn't going to pay the 60 that we need based on your 4,000 a month.
Right.
I don't have enough. Does this make sense? Now, you may also have other income sources at this time that are supplementing from your rentals and Airbnb and other things. So we do need to take that into account. Is 50% of that lifestyle budget being paid some other way at this time?
Yeah, I mean, the number's probably not 50%, but I see what you're saying for sure.
Right. So let's say, for example, if that's the case, then it's not to say this goal needs to change, but if you want to eventually stop or have that other income become passive income, right, then that becomes the savings and this becomes the profit generator.
Right.
Now, this is also with you putting, this is, we've got you here, this is your annual amount. We might say, you know what, maybe in our first year, maybe we can only put 2,500, essentially one unit aside to save, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus you had 2 units, right? Maybe in your first year, that's too high. So that already changes your profit, but you still have savings. Does this make sense to you guys, what I'm talking about here? So the idea behind this is, like if I go into, actually, let me go into Nicole's. So here, this is Nicole. So she's got 17 listings, 7 buyers, right? This is yours, Nicole, right? Yeah, okay. So if I go over to her budget, I haven't looked at this yet. So if I go down to her signage, right? So hers are extremely actual because we already know she's a detailed human, right? She was whipping numbers out at us on Tuesday, she's right there. So this, if we were budgeting for 25 units, we might say, okay, is that enough photography for 17 listings?
For me, the first column, I actually based it on 2019 because I had the full picture. So my 2020 is the second column.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Okay. So when we look at this, so you're installing new signs. Do you install your own signs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, James does. Yeah.
And are you doing that in Halifax as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to challenge you as a business person.
I was waiting for that.
So it costs an average of $60 taxes in. James, you can listen to this, to have a sign installed in HRM. Okay.
Our rationale is we have to go to put the lockbox on anyways, and he takes him like 5 minutes to put up a sign because he's been doing it so much.
Okay, so that the question is it's also a question of time, right? Because you can also put your lockbox on when you sign the contract.
That's true.
You have to go there when you do the photography. Like you're already there at that house, right? The concept is to do the least amount of trips possible because you can't write off or bill anyone for the hour that James spends in time, gas, wear and tear on the vehicle, driving out, fighting in the snow with a frickin' stake to get a blinking sign in. It falls over, now you gotta go back, right?
Yeah.
$60, I get an invoice, I pay it, I'm done. I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's the same concept as picking up checks. This is a pet peeve of mine from a business perspective, let me just tell you. You get a commission check, you're gonna go drive from wherever you live to whatever law firm, downtown, wherever the hell it is. You're gonna fight with traffic, park, go get the thing, drive back, drive it to the office so they can deliver it. It is $12 for a courier, $12. You tell the office, they'll pick it up. It delivers, it's instantly deposited in your check. You cannot get those 2 hours of your life back. You are worth more than $6 an hour. That 2 hours you spent picking up a paycheck is 2 hours you could have met with a human to earn $10,000. This is the business mindset that I'm talking about. So initially you think you're saving money, but I am telling you, you will run yourselves ragged.
Don't do $10 jobs when you can do $200 jobs.
Correct, right? It was so funny one time, I don't know why, we have never picked up a commission check, ever. The entire 6 years I've been with Keller Williams. I do not pick up checks. Nor do my team pick up checks. I pay for their checks to get picked up. They don't pay for it, I pay for it because I want them to get paid and I don't want them spending an hour of their life going to pick up a freaking check.
You pay mine?
No, not unless you're on my team, honey. So, but the concept being is I don't want you doing non-income producing activities.
Yeah. I think we carried on with it because in the South Shore, it's pretty standard practice to do your own.
Right. And so that's fine. But if you're starting to have to plan your day and your appointments because you have to make a trip to install something or do something, like we put lock boxes on appointments. We could have that lockbox on for 3 weeks before while we're under exclusive before anybody's going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
Right? So it's things like that. Like we do the measuring when we do the photography, we do this, all that's done in one time because I don't want to go back again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm blessed because my business is in a place now where I don't physically go to do any of those things. I don't do measuring. I don't do photography. My transaction coordinator does that and arranges that.
I gotta go.
Okay, yes, okay, bye.
I'll join with you in a moment as soon as I'm in my vehicle.
Okay, perfect. Because that's not an income producing activity for me. I would rather pay $150 to my measuring company to guarantee and measure my properties and give me floor plans than for me to spend an hour and a half with a measuring tape, laser measurer or other figuring that crap out. That's not worth my time.
Yeah, we just did that the first time last month and it was a game changer. And I forgot to factor that into the expenses actually.
Yeah, so, but now when you're first starting, I understand cash flow does not necessarily allow for all of these things, but I need you to be tracking because that's how you build your business, because then you actually have time to spend on income producing activities.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
It actually makes you look like a professional as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you walk in with measuring tape and you're struggling with that measuring tape and they're watching, like, you need help? It's embarrassing. You walk in, you have someone come in, they measure the property for you, they take pictures for you, you just stand back and relax. You look like a professional.
Yeah,
well, and when they're doing the measuring, like we're not even home half the time. They go and the clients let them in. There's nothing for us to supervise. They're measuring a house. I don't need to be there. Why am I there? I don't need to be there. Now, if I planned it to be at the same time. You're what?
I'm a control freak. I need to be a part of everything.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because that is relevant, right? So learning how to teach your customers and your clients on what your service expectations are going to be is part of how you become, it's part of how you can grow and how you can start to delegate non-income producing activities. So part of that comes from, at the beginning, making sure that you have spectacular partners, right? Now, give you an example. We are never going to send a photographer to a client's house for a listing where I don't have a member of my team present. That's never going to happen because we are absolute control freaks over our photography. If the bedspread is wrinkled, I will send him back. It makes me crazy. Magnets on the fridge, shoot me now, right? So toilet seats up is the end.
Toilet seats the worst. Cannot
handle that, right? And the photographers, our photographers, this sounds wrong. I want to say I don't want to say they're trained. I want to say they are very clear on our expectations. But I still have to have a member of my team there to supervise to make sure that that second set of eyes, the pillow's not crooked, the curtains aren't all bunched up at the bottom. Those are the little details. But if everything is prepared, it's a quick visit. It's 45 minutes. You're in, you're out. You throw the lockbox on at the same time, measuring guys there, you're done, you leave. I don't have to go back a second time. And here's the thing we have to remember from as a business perspective. Your clients don't want to actually see you as many times as you think they do. Right? It's the same concept as when we switched to digital signatures. People were, oh my God, no one's ever going to hire me. They want me to sit at their kitchen table. No, they really don't at 10 o'clock at night when they're exhausted and they just got their kids to bed and they now can't put their pajamas on because you have to come and get one initial at 10 o'clock at night. No, they do not want to see you. They want you to sell their house. They want to talk to you. You can have a phone call. You can do a Zoom meeting. You can do whatever. But you will not lose the client if you send them an electronic signature. None of you have necessarily been in the business long enough to remember the switch. Kyle, you might have been, right? But your clients didn't all just suddenly take off because you weren't coming to see them at 10 o'clock at night.
To be honest, my clients don't like to do things in person anyway. They rather text messages. They rather be antisocial.
It's our new reality. But the reason I'm talking about this now is because this goes back to efficiencies of a business, right? And being realistic about what generates income, what can be delegated and what cannot. There are some things you should never delegate. You should never delegate negotiations. You should never delegate difficult conversations. You should never delegate difficult feedback. You know, those things, they hired you, they want to hear from you for those things. But they really, really don't care who puts the sign up. They don't care. They want the sign up, right? So these are just conversations in terms of money, things like couriers and things like that. So when Nicole is going through here, she has very good profit margin, but I do think that my suggestion for you, same conversation as we just had when we looked at Alex's numbers, is you need to look at your budget as a factor per unit.
Yeah.
So if I look at your digital advertising with 17 listings, I will say that's too low. If you want it to become a lead generating portal for you.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going to say per listing, if my average sale on a listing is bringing me $6,000, I'm prepared to commit $250 per listing. Some you're not going to need it. Some you're going to need more. Right? But you might say, you know what, that is not even like 1%, really, like it's really cheap. Like that's a pretty cheap proportion to commit to that consumer. And then you budget it and you just plan to have that money. You may not always need it. In our seller's market right now, the only reason we're advertising listings is to try and create other leads because the listing's going to sell.
Yeah.
Right. So that, you know, you might reallocate that to marketing versus listing advertising. Right. But the money is still going to get spent. And, or you say, you know what, I don't need to advertise my listings, but I'd love to advertise for more buyers. You already have a budget. Now you're reallocating it and you have the funds to do it.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at same thing, client appreciation, you know, you might decide to do, maybe it's not something that you currently do. And it is certainly a little bit more challenging right now with our gathering rules, but you know, there's all kinds of business development ideas that come from this that set realtors apart. It's things like, you know, doing pumpkins for people in the fall. It's maybe delivering pies at Christmas. It's, you know, having a kids event at a park with a bouncy castle and whatever for clients once a year as an appreciation event. And maybe it's a wine tasting for a select group of people. I don't know, right? Maybe you do a paint night or I don't know, whatever the heck you want. And they don't have to be big events. They can be micro events where you have groups of 10 people who have a common interest, where you take your client base and go, you know what, I know all these people love gardening, so I'm going to do a little event, right? Because there's advertising that comes from it, sponsorship that comes from it, lead generation, and you're front and center in front of those people's faces, right? Mm-hmm. So again, it would be looking at, you know, I'm not telling you need to do client gifts. We don't do a lot of client gifts. We're very fortunate that our client base is so self-sustaining based on service versus things that we've gotten them. But we have moved a little bit more to, you know, not a big token, but, you know, $100, $150, you know, get them and we tend to customize it per client, right? So some people drink, some people don't. I'm not going to always buy everybody a bottle of wine. I'm going to have someone who doesn't drink and that's not appropriate. If depending on the local area, we tend to try and buy a gift card to a local startup type restaurant to support a local business and give them a nice bottle of wine and a card and a you know, we just had a bunch of clients move to Nova Scotia. We made sure that we gave them a local business gift card, and then we bought a Nova Scotia wine to promote local as what we gave them, right? So it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was different. I had a client years ago, or last year actually, got no sense of time. And, you know, he was a big Scotch drinker, loved that. So, went, I know nothing about scotch, went, talked to the guy at the store and got, whatever. And so because it was personal, he remembered that, right?
Yeah.
Based on conversations. I can tell you a funny one. Years ago, we sold a hobby farm to a client in Portapique. I had never been to Portapique. It's not that far from here, but it was far enough that I didn't know where I was going. And they bought a hobby farm, and our clients, she wanted a goat with the hobby farm. And her husband was adamant that there would not be a goat because it would eat the seatbelt out of the tractor and, they'll eat whatever. So we adopted a goat for her through World Vision. And so she got a goat. So she was happy and he was happy, and we donated to charity, and it was funny and it was a win-win. We got her like a stuffed goat, like a teddy bear goat, to go with her real goat that helped feed a family and provide milk and all that wonderful stuff. So it wasn't a huge amount of money. It was $100 to adopt a goat, right? But it was that, not necessarily this is the box that every consumer gets, right? But it's just having a budget so that you can do that for your clients. Maybe it's something for their kids. I don't know, right? Just sometimes it's those little, it's exactly why it's called a wow.
Yeah.
It's a client wow, right? Maybe, let's be realistic. Maybe this is also, something didn't go quite right on pre-close, and you have a bit of a budget to buy them that light fixture that was a fight on closing that just turned into a shit show. And you're not actually taking away from your profit because you've set aside money to deal with those types of things that happen, and that will set you apart as providing exceptional service.
Yeah.
Does this make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
So essentially, what I'm going to send you all back to do is to re-look at these worksheets, okay? My recommendation is, because for all of you, whether you're doing an Excel or Google Sheets, it doesn't matter, is I think everybody knows, does everybody know how to duplicate a sheet? Does everybody know how to do that? Yes, Samit, yes, everybody? Okay,
Yeah.
so you can have one and you can name it today's date. And then you can duplicate it in 2 months if you want to keep the original version and have another version, and then you can go back and compare them, right? Or add another column, right? Just so that you're watching the progression. But what I beg of you guys from this course that we're going to do today, and I think we're going to do a third session because I don't think I'm going to get to the other stuff for you in time, is that you don't do this stuff and have this folder and never look at it again. It's like when you go to a great conference or a great training session and you get the book, and then you go back and 5 years later, you're cleaning out your office and you go, oh, that was such a good day. I learned so much on that day. Wow, I really meant to do a lot of these things. And it's in your drawer and you've never seen it, and there's this spectacular amount of dust on top of it. So that's great, but if you didn't implement any of it, then it doesn't help you, right? So this is the type of thing where, and this is something that I'm happy to do as well. We can do a quarterly check-in as a group from this very specific business planning session, where we meet once a quarter and we're accountable to each other on what we're doing.
That sounds good.
Right? So I'll give you an example I don't know who, I know Nicole did Bold and I know Lynette did Bold because they were in my Bold group, the most recent virtual one. And we have continued our Bold group. Bold finished May 28th. We are still continuing to meet. Now we're doing it every 2 weeks to help just keep everybody on track so that we are accountable. It takes 45 minutes. So I'm happy to continue to work with you guys one-on-one in this group to help keep you guys on track, because it's really easy to stick this stuff on a shelf, right? So if that's something you guys would like to do, I'm more than happy to do it. And what we'll do is we'll set up like a standing appointment, and it'll just exist, and then we will Zoom in together. Maybe we do it, once a month for the first couple of months till you guys get on your feet, and then we switch it to once a quarter, right? Would that be something that interested you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kyle, what are your thoughts? He's talking to himself. He's on mute.
Sorry, I was in a different window. My thoughts, I hate accountability.
So how's the non-accountability working for you?
Great, it makes my life so much more fun. But yeah, no, I'm down. I think it's a great idea.
I love that you guys are honest. I love that, because that's how this works, right? Is if we're actually prepared to make change, then you'll make change, right? So I can tell you, like, I have a coach, like, yes, I coach other people doing this, but I also have a coach because I also have to be held accountable, because it's really easy for me. I'm the broker. I'm not accountable to a whole lot of humans except the owners, right? In terms of what I'm doing, but I have to hold myself accountable as well. And it's really easy for me to just slide along. So being uncomfortable is what is going to actually change your businesses. So I'm excited about that. Okay. So looking at these sheets, do you guys feel more comfortable with how these work now?
Yeah.
Everybody? Cindy, yes,
Anything
Kyle?
I'll have,
Sorry, Lynette, you cut out there.
I'm probably going to have questions because I missed a little bit, but I'm sure you will help me.
And I know this is a big change. Like, I know you've probably never looked at your real estate career in this way. I fundamentally understand that this is a gigantic shift, but I promise you, if you start to do this, you will see measurable changes. You will also see a difference in your activity, because you're suddenly looking back at something going, crap, I was supposed to do that. Or, oh my God, I haven't tracked that. And it's a rainy, miserable day or something, and you pull out a bunch of receipts and you catch up. That's okay. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to do this as it happens all the time. That's a really big change. Nicole's going to do that because she's a detail person. We all know this and we love her for it. And she's going to hold us all accountable. But the rest of us might be doing a little catch up from time to time, and that's okay. Make sense? Okay. So we didn't even take a break. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. We just kept rolling. But we're going to go for about another 10 minutes, and then we're going to shut down, and I'm going to rebook another session is what I'm going to do, because there's a lot more that I want to share with you. And I think you guys are engaged and excited, so I want to do that. So just talking about conversion rates, what I'm not going to do time blocking today, because first of all, I can already tell that Kyle's brain is at its maximum in terms of attention span. So, and I love you for it, right? Do you play poker? I was going to say, you shouldn't if you do. And if you
I would be a horrible poker player.
If you want to play, I'm in. So, so when we're looking at what we're talking about, the goal from having these numbers, so if you guys take this and tweak it, play with the goal sheet, play with this budget a bit so that you have a number that matches proportionate to what your activity is supposed to be, you're going to find it's a little bit more on par. Okay. What we're going to do next time is we're going to talk about how to actually find the clients. So what I'm going to give you as homework, in addition to refining your sheets, because I know you've all started them, so that's great, is I want you to do like a point form brain dump in an email on where and how you can find clients. And I mean anything that's legal. Okay. So the idea behind this, because what I want to show you is where you should be focusing your activities. You're always going to have more than one source of business, and you're also going to have certain things that give you a higher rate of return. Okay. So there's an expression that I use regularly. Lynette has heard it many times. I may not have triggered her enough to be able to repeat it for me. But one of the things that I constantly say is I want your energy spent on going to the people who have people. What do you think I mean by that? Lynette, don't answer.
People who can give referrals.
Yep. What else?
Influencers, I guess.
Yeah, give me something more specific. Like when I say people with the people, so I'll give you an example. I can develop a relationship and spend time working with a mortgage broker, or I can go door knocking. Which one do you think is going to give you a higher rate of return?
Mortgage broker.
Why?
They have more reference and connections.
More than that. I want you to go deeper.
They can help you in your work as well.
No, that's a good idea. No, and I know what the answer is, so it's easy for me to do that. So what I'm looking for is, for example, if you get a lead from a mortgage broker, they're already prospecting people who have an interest in the product you sell. They have the common client to you, right? If they're working with an active buyer or someone who's selling who's going to buy, because that's why they're with them, that person has an active, motivated, and pre-qualified consumer who wants the product you have in your shopping bag, right? Does that make sense? So if you go door knocking, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, well, you won't do it right now because this is not going to work. But if you're doing that, you are going to have to hit, say, 100 doors to find one person who may be possibly interested at some point in actually selling their house. So that's great as a supplementary piece to go in your funnel, but that's not where I would put the majority of my energy. Does that make sense? It's the same idea as networking to lawyers. I can tell you right now, real estate lawyers are going to be the last people that are ever going to send you a lead. Why? Why is that?
They're at the end of the deal?
Correct. They're at the wrong end. By the time the client comes to them, they have an offer. It's extremely rare. It does happen, but it is extremely rare that clients call their lawyer and ask for a realtor. Now, if you have great relationships, when that call happens, you will get the call. But your rate of return on someone who hands out mortgages versus someone who signs deeds is like this. Make sense?
Yeah.
So where are the people with the people? Financial planners, investors, accountants, mortgage people, bankers, estate planners, estate lawyers, divorce lawyers. These are people with people who could have an immediate need. For example, networking groups, business groups who are committed to supporting each other in business because they believe in the reciprocity of business. Other realtors across Canada, across North America. These are the types of concepts when I'm talking about going to the people with the people. We want to focus on them first. We want to focus on people who are going to want to buy, have people who want to buy or sell real estate within 90 days. So when we're looking at where is the priority of our time, so that when I teach you time blocking, your eyes don't roll back in your head like Kyle's did, you are actually doing something that's going to produce activity. Because if you're doing stuff that's not producing results, you're going to stop time blocking because you're frustrated and it's going circular and you're done. Because you're probably not spending your time in the right places. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So this is what I want you to think about. What are all the ideas you guys have? We're going to make a collective list before our next session. And I'm going to put it together and you're going to send them to me and I'm going to put it all together. Because the idea is we want to rank them so that when you're planning your time and you're planning your budget, so you knew I was going to go back to that at some point, in terms of where you're spending your time and your money and your resources, which includes your energy, we want to make sure we're spending it on things that are actually going to generate these flipping appointments.
Yeah.
So that's why when I say to you, the purpose of this course is to teach you what you need to do, but then it's to teach you how to actually focus your time and your energy and your resources to actually accomplish this goal of an appointment. Because if not, I haven't given you anything practical to use. And then you just walk away with this stuck in your virtual electronic drawer and you never do anything with it. So Lynette, who's, I'm not sure if she's still on the call. Yes, she is.
I'm here.
Yeah, that's okay. So Lynette, on a regular basis, hears from me about who she's talking to. She may start to squirrel off on something else, and my job is to help pull her back to be doing a productive activity. Is that fair, Lynette?
Yep, correct.
So sometimes it also includes the method with which you communicate. What is the script that you're going to use to communicate? And that's where, despite Kyle's uncomfortableness with accountability, that's where the group becomes very powerful. So I'll give you an example. Our team uses something called BombBomb Video. We use it a lot. I would describe us as passionate about it, Lynette. Would you agree?
Yes, we are.
Now she says we. She's less passionate yet, but she's getting there, right?
I don't like video. I'll get used to it.
But, you know, she was prepared to be uncomfortable because it's a tool that we offer our team. And in doing so, and doing something very specific, targeted to a very specific audience that we worked on, she got a buyer who's under contract.
Yeah.
So she quickly got over herself because it paid off.
Yeah.
And that's the way most of us work, right? We don't want to do it unless we're going to see some success. We'll do it for a while, but there better be a payoff, because you're only going to beat your head against the wall for so long.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Oh,
So
yeah.
part of that is because when you became a realtor, in most cases, nobody told you what to do. You got your license. A beacon was supposed to go out to space that announced that you were a realtor and that everybody should hire you, right? All your friends and family were just supposed to instantly hire you, even though they know you've never done this before, right? And you may be following strategies that someone else told you who maybe is moderately successful or et cetera, but we need to be able to adapt to your personal life. So Samit has a 7-year-old, Kyle has an 18-year-old, you know, Nicole has fur babies. We all have different lives and different things that we need to do. So your prospecting has to match that reality of who you are as a human. If Kyle's gone for 3 months on a beach somewhere, then we need to make sure that his prospecting for those other 9 months is going to fund that. So we don't want to set him up with activities that are a complete waste of his time, because he's going to stop doing them, and then he's not going to have money to do his 3 months on a beach, and he's going to be frustrated and feel like his business isn't going anywhere, and he's going to want to stop. Does that sound right? So
Absolutely.
there are certain activities that are more income producing than others in terms of what works. And you always have to have, you know, you've heard the expression, I don't know, your mother probably said this to you at some point about not having all your eggs in one basket. We've all heard this, right?
Yep.
Okay, but this is real. This is an actual real thing, to not put all your prospecting one way, because consumers have different time frames. So some consumers from this mortgage broker are going to come in this month, and some from another mortgage broker are going to come in another month, and this financial planner is going to feed you a lead then, and this door knocking guy that you've talked to and you keep doing that property, they're slowly going to come, but they take longer. The networking group takes 6 to 12 months to create a lead. So we need a balance of all these different things in order to keep the funnel being full all the time. And if we go back to our bunny, we are officially determining is not a rodent. We are declaring it not a rodent. Whether we're a squirrel or whether we're a bunny or whatever you are, we also need to do different things every day or we get bored. Do you guys agree with that statement?
Yeah.
So if you have different kinds of productive prospecting that we've time blocked, you won't mind doing it because there's variety and it produces results. You don't want to do it when it's boring, repetitive, and it doesn't get you anywhere. Does that sound like representative of what you're looking for? Kyle, smile and nod at me because I know you're looking at another screen. Okay. So this is the concept. So this will be the last piece. So I apologize that we're going to do a third one, but I hope that you will do the third one with me, because I think we're making good progress, and I think you guys are getting it. That's what I think. That's what I'm seeing, but I'm not. Am I right? Are you getting it? Are we on the right track?
Yes, of course. You know.
Okay, so I think it was worth spending the extra time on the budgets and the sheets and all of that to make sure that you have a better understanding of it, because it is at the fundamental core of your business. Is everything you're doing should be producing the positive results in these trackers. And if we don't understand the business element of how your money works, then your goals won't be right. And the the production activity that we're going to do next won't match. And so then you're working, but you're not making money. I would love to help each of you build a business where you build not just a referral-based business that is self-sustaining, but that's also profitable, that will fund your big whys that we talked about. I would love to help you accomplish those personal goals, but they will come, unfortunately, tied to treating it like a business, and successful businesses track finances and make certain business choices. It's just that simple. And once you have that in your head, it's literally going to change how you function as a realtor, and it's going to separate you from the top producers in our industry, from the people that you read their name on a cut sheet and go, I don't know who that is. I've never heard of that person. Versus people you do business with year after year after year. I can tell you, because I've been in it long enough now that I can legitimately say this, I do business with certain realtors again and again and again over the years. And there's other people I have never seen before and I will never see again. And I don't want you to be the latter. I want you to be the people that when you're saved in my phone, and when I call, we love to do deals together because they go well and we have a great relationship and everybody's professional. And I can say to my clients, oh my gosh, you know what? This is going to be great. I so enjoy working with Kyle. You know, we've done lots of deals together and it's going to be fair play. I'm not saying that the seller and you are going to love each other all the way through, but I know that Kyle and I work well together, and we're going to, rabbits or rodents. So Kyle just posted. Oh, they aren't rodents. Yay! Thank you. So, but I want to make sure that you are that person where we get to say to our clients, you know what? It's going to be great. Super professional realtor, really reasonable. You know, that's a really big compliment in our industry.
And you'll get your offers accepted more often, especially in competing situations.
It's true. It is legitimately a thing. Because sometimes what will happen is you'll have two different offers, and that agent who's presenting them, they'll say, you know, they're identical, but I can tell you, we're going to have we have a much better success rate if we're working with this person versus that person. And you want to be the one they pick. So when you run a business and you treat your actions and your philosophies of how you work with your clients based on it being a business, it spills into absolutely everything that you do from a production perspective. So Again, I commend you guys and thank you so much for taking the time to join me again on a June afternoon and being committed to this new mindset, which I think is a big change for everybody, and that you're open and accepting and ready to learn is going to distinguish you guys and make you top producers and have all the big whys you want achieved. So what I'm going to do for a date, is everybody here familiar with a doodle poll? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I am.
Lynette is. Okay, so what happens, you're going to get an email from me and it's going to offer you, it's basically like you check it. I'll offer like 3 or 4 dates and times, and you tick the ones that you're available, and you can see everybody else's answers instead of like 40 circular emails about when we're all available. I cannot handle that. And you basically, you put your name in and you tick, yes, you're available either all of those times or none of those times or whatever. And then the one or two that work, when you click submit, it instantly comes to me. It's sort of like a DocuSign, and we'll see when everybody's available. And then that will be the time we pick, and then we'll set up the Zoom for that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. If I will not be sending this out today, not gonna lie. But when I get it to you, probably tomorrow, we'll aim realistically. It won't be next week because we're a short week and it's Canada Day and everything else. It'll probably be the week after. So that will give you time to work on your worksheets and think about all of the crazy, wonderful, harebrained ideas you have for prospecting. We want to share them. We want to help each other with ideas. Remember, we're not competing with each other. So sharing all the ideas that you have on where you can find business. We want a big brain dump email and we'll put it all together. Okay, thanks guys. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ann. Ann, do
Yes.
you have a minute to give me a call?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.